What's up, Marvel fans? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and today I'm going to be looking at my picks for the most shocking moments from every Marvel Disney Plus series so far. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, coming up next week, March 30th, the newest Disney Plus series for Marvel, Moon Knight, will be coming out. We're going to be covering that in some form or another on our channel throughout the weeks, as I think it has like 6 episodes or something, so keep an eye out for that. We'll be reviewing it or doing something along those lines with that, answering questions or whatever, things like that. So keep an eye out for that if you're a Marvel fan. But the reason I wanted to do this video today is because I wanted to look back at all the other Marvel Disney Plus shows that came out last year and pretty much dominated the whole year in terms of Marvel content. Like not only did they have like 4 movies at the start of Phase 4 of the MCU, but they also had all these shows like WandaVision and Loki and all those things. So I kind of wanted to look back on those and kind of pick out what I felt was the most shocking or surprising moments from each of those shows, because they were all different in their own way. And if you haven't seen it, I did a ranking video where I ranked everything that came out for the MCU last year, all the movies and shows. I ranked them together, so go check that out if you haven't seen it. But let's get started with the first show that came out last year, and pretty much one of the best Disney Plus series that they had last year, WandaVision. I think the most shocking moment from that show, even though that whole show was full of like surprising moments, because that's what it was meant to be. It was this big mystery, like what is happening in this Westview town. If you haven't seen it, go check out WandaVision. It was one of their best shows. It did get nominated for a lot of awards, I think, and everything too. I think the most shocking moment, in my opinion, from that show was seeing Evan Peters from the Fox X-Men universe, that version of Quicksilver, showing up in the MCU. Because he knocks on the door and Wanda opens it and he says, like, no hug for your brother or whatever. And that was kind of shocking because we had seen her brother, Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver, in Avengers Age of Ultron, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, which was a different version of that character, and he died in that movie. Like, he was only here for the one movie, so it was kind of shocking to see that, like, did Wanda just open the multiverse? Like, this is the one thing from this show that I think really sparked a lot of fan theories and everything else. Like, who is behind this? Did she just pluck a version of her brother from the multiverse, and bring him here so that she could have her brother on this her sitcom show that she was doing? And I thought that was like really interesting and surprising. I did not expect that. And as it turns out, he was just a normal dude that lived in Westview, conveniently played by that actor. It was one big swerve. But at the time, I think it was like maybe episode 5 or 6 of that show is when he showed up, and he was there for the rest of the series. But there were all kind of theories like, is this Mephisto in disguise? Did Wanda just open the multiverse and get him out and bring him here into the main MCU? Because this was after, or I think a few years or something, or a year or two after Disney acquired all the Fox properties. So, like, they're able to bring in the X-Men now and mutants and everything else. It was, like, right off the bat, they're like, let's throw in a X-Men character here. And that was kind of surprising to see him here. And it really left people that watched it with a lot of questions and everything. And then they, it turned out they swerved us. And if you go back and watch it again, it's still, like, even though you know what's coming and who he actually is, it's still, like, the direction they could have taken with this could have been a lot better. I think the reveal that it was like a swerve was kind of dragged it down a little bit, but it was still kind of fun and brought out all those fan theories and everything else. And seeing that she is now searching the multiverse for variants of her kids, which is going to come into play in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, if you've seen the trailers for that, then she does now possess the power to bring people from the multiverse. So it was like at that time, though, she didn't necessarily have that power, or didn't know she had that power. So there was a lot of fun theories that came from seeing him show up on the show. And of course, we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think, honestly, this was like the weakest of the shows they had last year because, it was like, there was a lot of things, interfering with it, like COVID-19 and everything else. They had to make a lot of changes to things. I don't blame them for that. I just feel like the show wasn't that impactful. But there was one moment that still kind of lingers in my mind when I think about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that's the moment where John Walker, aka U.S. Agent, or as I like to call him, Captain Scumerica, kills one of the Flag Smashers using Captain America's shield. That still is like really shocking in my head. Like I still remember that, seeing the blood on his shield. And for a Disney Plus series, even though we didn't really see him actually like kill the person, you know what is happening, especially there was blood all over the shield and everything else. For a Disney Plus series, that's really gruesome. And I think it really worked to show like how conflicted he was. Like once his friend was killed by the Flag Smashers in that battle by accident, it really showed like how not only how the super soldier serum that he injected himself with is now affecting him, but it's also kind of like his personal conflicts and his inner demons and everything else. Like he just let it all out and killed that person, and we haven't seen that level of like, I think, brutality in the MCU. I don't think ever, honestly, like where we've seen somebody kill, or one of the villains kill another person in this kind of manner. Like we've seen explosions and things like that, but nothing to this extent, you know. And it was a really extreme moment just to see that happen, and I still remember that to this day, and I think a lot of people probably do. If you were to picture something from Falcon and the Winter Soldier to pick out as the most shocking moment, I definitely think this is where it was, and I really think they shot that scene really well, and it was still in my mind to this day. The most shocking moment, I think, from the Loki series was basically the last episode, really, when Loki and Sylvie run into He Who Remains, who is a variant of Kang the Conqueror. I remember this was like, as soon as I saw Jonathan Majors walk out of the elevator, and I remembered seeing that Jonathan Majors is going to play Kang the Conqueror in the upcoming Ant-Man sequel, I was really surprised to see this, and I was like, okay, well, this is their next villain that they're setting up then, and I can't believe they're actually setting it up like on one of these series like this, because Kang the Conqueror is a time-traveling villain, and we know we are going to see him again in the future, not He Who Remains now, because he was killed, but seeing a variant of Kang the Conqueror sets up in a nice way what the future of the MCU is going to be, that he is this big-time villain that they're going to have to battle, and it all starts because of the events of Loki that play out, and we might see him again in Doctor Strange too. Like I don't really know, because they haven't advertised Jonathan Majors for anything else, I don't think, other than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, unless they just like throw him in there somewhere without revealing that he's going to be in this to reveal too much. But we know this was only one of who knows how many variants of Kang the Conqueror. And seeing him show up in this, even though the whole episode was mainly him talking for like 20 minutes or whatever, it was still the way he was explaining everything and how the timelines work and what the multiverse is and all this, and how he was controlling all of it and keeping it all balanced so that his variants can't get out. I think that adds an interesting layer to his character, and I can't wait to see Kang the Conqueror show up again. I think it'd be fun to kind of like throw him in as cameos in different series and things like that, but we'll have to wait and see what they do with it. Now, as bizarre as like the What If series was, there were a lot of, like, each episode was kind of its own series essentially, because it showed, you know, the different things that might have happened if a character from the MCU had done something differently or taken a different path in life, maybe didn't become the hero that they were and somebody else became that hero. Like the first episode was Peggy Carter becoming Captain America, or Captain Carter as people are calling her, instead of Steve Rogers. So it was like that each episode had its own interesting and unique twist to things, and it was all narrated by the Watcher, who was just basically in the background, but nobody could really see him and everything else. Like a sort of silent narrator, he was talking to us directly and basically explaining, here's what would have happened if this played out, and then he kind of watches the events. And we're led to assume it's just this like innocent sort of thing, like we just have this guy in the background who's narrating for us and everything else, and it's this fun show just to kind of sort of show a different side to what the MCU could have been if different things had played out. But then as you start to get through the episodes, we start to realize that it's not just that, because it is setting up something. Because by the end of the series, the Watcher actually ends up assembling this group of characters from across the different episodes that we've seen, so from across the multiverse, to battle a variant of Ultron that got the Infinity Stones. And for me, the most shocking moment from this whole series was when Ultron gets those stones. He is then somehow given this sort of omnipotence where he is able to see and hear the Watcher speaking. Like, because the Watcher shows up in that universe and he's kind of in the background, he's talking to us. Ultron turns around and he's like, I can see you. And I think that was really creepy, because even like the Watcher ended up closing that like little bubble or whatever, essentially, that he watches it through. But then Ultron actually breaks out of it like glass and ends up fighting with the Watcher. And I think that was really interesting to see how powerful somebody with the Infinity Stones actually can be. The only other person we've seen so far was Thanos, but we don't even know if the Watcher exists in like this main MCU timeline that we're seeing. So he might have also known about the Watcher, been given all this information about the universe and everything else just from having the 6 Infinity Stones. But I thought this showed how much of a threat not just Ultron, but anybody with the 6 Infinity Stones can be. And just that he was able to see the Watcher just all of a sudden, like, broke this show completely in a new direction, and all of a sudden everything came together. Instead of it just being this fun show that wasn't, where none of the episodes were connected, now it was this its own thing, and it was actually all connected. And I think they did that in an interesting way, and it all started because Ultron was able to see the Watcher. And finally, from the Hawkeye series, you could argue that the most shocking moment, I guess, was that Kingpin, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who played Wilson Fisk in the Daredevil series. You could argue that that's a shocking moment, seeing him show up, because then later on in Spider-Man No Way Home, we did see Charlie Cox, Matt Murdock show up. But I don't think that really was the most shocking moment, because it was kind of hinted at throughout the whole series that Kingpin was going to be in it. And Kingpin was in the comic book that they were basing this series off of. But I think the most shocking moment from Hawkeye was when Yelena Belova showed up, played by Florence Pugh, who played her in the Black Widow movie, which we had seen earlier last year. When she showed up and attacked Clint Barton. The reason I like this moment so much is because it calls back to the end credit scene of Black Widow, where Yelena is recruited by Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who we had seen recruit John Walker previously on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's obvious that she's building her own little group of these kind of anti-heroes to maybe become the new Avengers, or to battle a new version of the Avengers, probably the Young Avengers, honestly. But she sent her after Clint Barton because Val claimed that Clint killed Natasha Romanoff, which we know wasn't true. If you saw Avengers Endgame, you know that she sacrificed herself so that Clint could get the Soul Stone so they could use it against Thanos later on. But I like this little callback to that. And then Yelena being on the show for like the rest of the series. There was only like 3 episodes left, I think, at this point. I think it really showed that like Yelena was easily manipulated. And I thought maybe she was actually going to end up like killing Clint, and then that's why Kate Bishop would become the new Hawkeye or something. There was all kinds of things that could have come from this. And I think it was probably the most exciting moment on the show, because I didn't expect that at all. I thought, if anything, she would show up in like the last episode or something, and maybe go after Kate because she's looking for Clint. I didn't expect her to show up in like episode 4 of this series or whatever, so it was kind of cool to see that, and I hope they do this more in some of these other shows going forward. But let me know what you guys thought down in the comments section. What would you say was the most shocking moment from each of the Marvel Disney Plus shows that have come out so far? Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Like I said, we're going to be talking about Moon Knight when that comes out starting next week on March 30th. So keep an eye out for that as well. Thank you for watching the video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.
Subscribe.